I need you to understand something before this story begins, because once you hear what I'm about to tell you, you will never trust silence again. Not in your house, not in your room, and definitely not when you think you're alone. The night everything went wrong started with a sound so small, anyone else would have ignored it. A soft, deliberate tap under my bed. Just one. But it wasn't the kind of sound houses make. It was the kind of sound people make when they're trying not to be noticed. First, I told myself it was nothing. A pipe. A settling floorboard. A trick of a tired mind. But then the tapping came again. Slower this time, heavier, like a knuckle dragging across the wood, inch by inch. And that's when the cold realization hit me. Whatever was under there knew I was awake. The air in my room changed. It felt thicker, colder, like someone had opened a window that wasn't really open. The darkness under the bed didn't look like shadow anymore. It looked like something alive was hiding in it, watching me, waiting. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Because deep down I already knew this wasn't a dream. I had heard that same tapping 3 nights earlier, but back then it sounded like it came from the closet. And before that, from the hallway. Whatever it was, it had been getting closer. That's the part no one understands. We never notice the danger until it's inches away from us. We brush off the small signs, the tiny sounds, the uncomfortable moments where we feel eyes on us, even in an empty room. But the truth is, not every danger bursts through the door. Some crawl quietly, slowly, until they're right beneath you. When the tapping stopped, the silence became worse. Painful. Heavy. Like the room was holding its breath with me. Then the mattress moved. Just a little. A subtle shift. Enough for me to feel weight where no weight should be. And before I could even scream, a whisper floated from under the bed. So close it felt like it touched my ear. I finally found you. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body refused. I wasn't paralyzed by fear. I was paralyzed by the realization that the whisper sounded familiar. Too familiar. It sounded like someone I knew. Someone who shouldn't have been in my house. Someone who had died years ago. My heart slammed against my ribs, trying to break free from my chest. My throat tightened and tears blurred my vision as the whisper grew clearer, closer, almost loving. Don't look, you won't like what you see. But I did. I looked. And the moment my eyes met what was crawling out from the darkness, my sanity ended. Because it wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a monster. It was something worse. Something wearing a face it shouldn't have. Something smiling with teeth that weren't human. Something that had been waiting for me since the moment I moved into that room. And as it pulled itself out, joint by joint, too long, too twisted to be real, I realized the truth that still keeps me awake every night. Some things don't haunt houses. They haunt people. And once they choose you, there is nowhere in the world you can hide. Before any of this happened, before the tapping, the whisper, the thing under my bed, I lived a life that was painfully ordinary. And honestly, I liked it that way. Most nights were quiet in my house. I lived alone in a small countryside home about 40 minutes away from the nearest town. Not because I wanted to isolate myself, but because silence made me feel safe. After years of constant noise, city traffic, roommates, neighbors fighting through the walls, the countryside felt like a long, overdue exhale. My name doesn't matter much, but I work remotely as a freelance editor. That means most of my days looked exactly the same. Wake up late, make coffee, answer emails, fix other people's mistakes on their manuscripts. Simple. Predictable. Peaceful. On the night everything changed, nothing felt unusual. It was a little past 10:30 p.m., the time I usually shut down my laptop, stretch my back, and congratulate myself for surviving another day of deadlines. The house was warm, the fireplace crackled softly, and a half-finished cup of chamomile tea sat on the table beside me. Outside, the countryside was its usual quiet self. No cars. No neighbors. Just the wind brushing through the tall grass and the occasional hoot of an owl perched somewhere in the dark. I remember thinking how perfectly normal everything felt. I had just finished editing a chapter for a writer who had a habit of overusing adjectives. I closed the file, saved my progress, and leaned back in my chair with a relieved sigh. Nothing dramatic. Nothing strange. Just a regular night in a place that had become too comfortable. My room was dimly lit, but not in a creepy way, just cozy. A warm amber glow from the lamp, soft shadows stretching across the wooden floorboards, the familiar hum of my old computer fans winding down. I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel uneasy. I didn't feel anything except the dull tiredness that comes after staring at a screen for too long. I got up, stretched, and walked towards my bed. The same bed I had slept in for the past 3 years without a single unusual moment. The mattress was old but comfortable, the blankets soft, the sheets freshly washed. Everything was clean. Everything was quiet. Everything was fine. As I sat on the edge of the bed scrolling through my phone, my mind was in its usual place. Drifting. Wondering what to cook tomorrow. Thinking about overdue emails. Trying to remember if I locked the back door. The kind of thoughts everyone has before sleep pulls them under. I wasn't scared. I wasn't alert. I wasn't expecting anything. Because why would I? The countryside felt like the safest place in the world. Nothing ever happened there. No break-ins. No strange visitors. No drama. Just crickets, cool night air, and the soft rustle of trees beyond the fence. If anything, the only problem I had lately was boredom. Life had become a loop, but a comfortable one. Predictable. Routine. Safe. And that was the whole point. That peaceful, untouched normality, the quiet, calm environment, the soft glow of my room, the warm sigh of a simple life. All of it was seconds away from shattering, because even though I didn't know it yet, something was already inside my house. And it had been waiting for the right moment, the moment I finally felt safe to make itself known. I don't know what time it was when the feeling first hit me. All I remember is lying in bed, half scrolling, half dozing off when something in the room shifted. Not physically, not loudly, just a feeling like the air had changed density. First I assumed it was nothing. A draft from the window. The house settling. The usual countryside noises I had long learned to ignore. But then I heard it. A sound so small, so faint, that if the room hadn't been utterly silent, I would have missed it completely. Tap. A single light tap. Like something lightly brushing the wooden floor. I sat up a little, listening. Nothing. Just the wind outside and the low creak of the house breathing with the night. I told myself it was probably a bug. Maybe a branch outside touching the wall. Nothing serious. But a few minutes later I heard it again. Tap tap. Slow. Uneven. Almost intentional. I set my phone down on my lap and finally looked away from the screen. The room was dim but still familiar. Lamp glowing, blankets soft around me, shadows calm and still. Nothing felt dangerous. But something felt off. I took a breath, trying to shake the sudden tension building in my chest. My heartbeat felt louder than it should have been. I wasn't scared yet, just annoyed and confused. Maybe a mouse, I thought. Old houses get them all the time. That explanation made sense. Rational. Comforting. But then the temperature in the room dipped. Not a lot, just a few degrees, subtle enough that I questioned whether I imagined it. The kind of cold that creeps across your skin instead of hitting all at once. I pulled the blanket a little tighter around me. The countryside was always cool at night, so the temperature drop wasn't alarming on its own. But paired with that tapping sound, a slow, heavy unease started crawling up my spine. I reached over and turned my lamp slightly brighter, flooding more of the room with warm light. Still nothing. No movement. No shadows out of place. But I swear, the air felt thicker. Like someone had stepped into the room without touching the floor. My eyes kept drifting to the dark corner near my closet. Not because anything was there, but because it suddenly felt like the only place something could be hiding. I shook my head and forced myself to exhale. "You're tired," I muttered. "You've been working all day. You're imagining things." That explanation worked for about 10 seconds. Then came the next sound. Not a tap this time. Not movement. But something even smaller. A breath. A soft, slow exhale from somewhere near the foot of my bed. I froze. Not out of fear, just pure disbelief. My mind immediately tried to rationalize it. Wind under the door. Pipes. My imagination. But the breath had a rhythm, a human rhythm. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just listened to the thick silence stretching through the room. Several long seconds passed. Nothing else happened. No footsteps. No taps. No voice. But the feeling wouldn't go away. The sense that something in the room was paying attention to me. Not approaching. Not moving. Just watching. The hairs on my arms stood up. My chest tightened. My mouth felt dry. I kept staring at that same dark corner, unable to look anywhere else. It was just a shadow, normal, unmoving, harmless. But my body reacted like it was more than that. Like I wasn't alone. I swallowed hard and tried to think rationally. If something was actually there, I would see it. Right? Shadows don't hide things. Light exposes everything. So why did the room suddenly feel like the walls were leaning in? Like the darkness was holding its breath right along with me? I told myself again that I was being ridiculous. That nothing was wrong. That I was safe. But deep down, so deep I didn't want to admit it, I knew something had changed. The house felt different. The air felt different. I felt different. It was the kind of unease you can't explain. The kind that whispers softly in the back of your head. Something is here. Something is watching. Something is waiting. And at that point I realized I wasn't going to sleep at all. I don't know what pushed me to finally move. Maybe courage, maybe stupidity. But I slowly slid the blanket off and leaned forward to look around the room more clearly. The lamp cast warm light across the walls, the desk, the closet door. Everything looked normal. Too normal. That's when I heard it again. That breath. But this time it wasn't soft. It wasn't subtle. It was closer. A long, slow inhale, like someone dragging cold air through their teeth. The sound came from near the floor, right beside the bed. My body stiffened instantly. My throat closed. My pulse hammered so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. No more illusions. No misinterpretations. No house noises. Something was in the room with me. My mind screamed at me to run, but I couldn't. Every muscle locked up. I turned my head inch by inch toward the direction of the sound. First I saw nothing. Just the dim outline of my dresser, the soft glow from the lamp, the safe, familiar edges of my room. And then a shadow moved. Very slow. Very deliberate. It wasn't the shadow of furniture or a trick of the light. It rose from the floor as if unfolding itself from the darkness. A shape. A figure. I sucked in a breath so sharp it felt like knives in my chest. The thing lifted its head, and I saw the outline clearly now, too tall to be human, too thin, its limbs bending in ways they shouldn't. The room's warm light didn't touch it. Instead, the shadow seemed to swallow the light around it. The air grew heavier. So heavy I felt like I was sitting underwater. My ears rang. My skin prickled. Cold washed over me like a wave. The figure stepped closer. Not with footsteps. With silence. As if it floated between moments. It didn't lunge. It didn't run. It simply appeared nearer, like the space between us folded itself. My breath caught in my throat. There was no more pretending. No more excuses. This wasn't a draft or a mouse or my imagination. It was real. And it was inches from me. My hand moved without me thinking, reaching for my phone like a lifeline. But the screen didn't turn on. Dead. Completely dead. My lamp flickered. Just once. Then again, longer this time. The shadows stretched unnaturally across the room, spilling across the bed, the floor, the walls, like the darkness itself was alive and reaching. The figure, if I could even call it that, leaned its head toward me. No eyes. No face. Just a smooth, shifting void where features should have been. And then it did something I will never forget. It mimicked me. When I inhaled sharply in fear, it inhaled too, perfectly copying the rhythm of my breath. When my hand trembled, its arm twitched in the exact same motion. It wasn't attacking. It was studying me, learning me. The weight in the room deepened, pressing against my chest so hard I could barely breathe. Every instinct screamed at me that this thing wasn't here by accident. It wasn't a ghost wandering by. It wasn't curious. It was choosing me. The air crackled, the lamp flickered violently, and for half a second the entire room went dark. A pitch-black nothing. And in that fraction of a moment, I felt something cold graze my wrist like fingers long and skeletal. When the light snapped back on, the figure wasn't near the bed anymore. It was standing directly beside me. So close I felt its presence pressing against my skin. And that was the moment, the exact second, when the last piece of denial shattered. This wasn't just a weird night. This wasn't a trick of the senses. I was in danger. Real, immediate, suffocating danger. And whatever was in my room, it had no intention of letting me leave. The instant I realized the thing was standing right beside me, my body reacted before my mind could. I threw myself off the bed and hit the floor so hard the air punched out of my lungs. My vision blurred, but I didn't stop. I scrambled, crawling, slipping, pushing myself across the wooden floor toward the door. Behind me, the air cracked like something tearing through it. I didn't dare look back. My only thought was move, move, move. My hand hit the doorknob. Cold. Slippery. I twisted it violently, nothing. The knob wouldn't turn. Locked. From the inside. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to escape my body. I yanked harder, twisting until my wrist burned, but the door didn't budge. Then I heard it. The thing was moving. Not walking. Not stepping. But shifting across the room in quick, unnatural jerks, like reality was skipping frames. I looked over my shoulder. Its head was inches from the floor, twisted at an impossible angle, staring at me from beneath the bed like some grotesque spider-human hybrid. And then it lunged. I screamed and threw myself sideways, rolling across the hardwood just as the shadow slammed into the door where I was seconds earlier. The impact shook the walls, rattling everything in the room. No more time to think. Fight or flight. And I definitely wasn't fighting. I bolted for the window. My hands flew to the latch, pulling it up so fast I nearly ripped it off. I shoved the window open and felt the cold countryside air slap me in the face. Behind me, another crack. Another shift in the air. It was coming. I didn't climb out. I jumped. The bushes below broke my fall, stabbing into my arms and legs as I crashed through them. I scrambled out, half running, half crawling onto the dirt path beside the house. The night was dead silent. No dogs. No wind. No insects. Just the rushing blood in my ears. I sprinted across the yard barefoot, every stone and thorn slicing my feet open, but the pain barely registered. My mind was locked in pure animal survival. Halfway to the road, a shadow stretched across the ground in front of me. Long, distorted. Growing. I froze mid-step, skidding in the dirt. The shadow wasn't mine. It rose slowly, like something enormous was unfolding itself from the darkness of the house behind me. My breath caught. Run. Run. I tore down the dirt road, legs burning, lungs screaming. Every few seconds I felt the air shift behind me. Quick bursts of cold, like the thing was teleporting inches closer each time. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The old barn was up ahead, its wooden doors hanging open just enough for me to slip through. I made a desperate dash inside and threw my weight against the door, pushing it shut as quietly as I could. Darkness swallowed me. My chest heaved. My breath shook. I could barely think. I crouched behind a stack of bales, pressing myself so tightly against them that the rough hay scraped my skin raw. Then I heard it. Soft. Subtle. Wrong. Breathing. Not outside. Inside. In the barn. With me. It was mimicking my breathing again. Slow, raspy inhales that matched mine perfectly, like it was mocking me. I slapped a hand over my mouth to muffle my panic. Tears stung my eyes. The breathing stopped. Silence. Then, a sudden whisper of movement. Hay shifting. Wood creaking. Footsteps that weren't footsteps. Just the sound of something gliding inches above the ground. Closer. Closer. Something brushed my hair. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My mind raced for an exit. The back door, small, half-rotted, hidden behind tools. I lunged for it, shoving it open and exploding into the cold air outside just as the barn behind me shuddered violently, like something slammed into the walls from within. I ran again, tears blurring my vision, until I reached the treeline. I didn't stop. Not when my legs gave out. Not when my chest felt like it would burst. Not even when the night behind me suddenly went silent again, as if the thing had stopped chasing. Because I knew one thing, it wasn't gone. Just waiting. I don't remember how long I ran after that. Minutes. Hours. The world blurred into trees and dirt and the pounding of my heartbeat. But at some point, without realizing it, I collapsed beside an old wooden fence on the edge of a cornfield. That's where a farmer found me at sunrise. I woke up on his porch wrapped in a blanket, my clothes still damp with cold sweat and dirt. The man looked terrified, not of me, but of whatever I might have been running from. I tried to explain, but my voice was raw, cracked. Nothing came out except gasps. He called the sheriff. 2 deputies arrived within an hour and drove me back toward the abandoned farmhouse. I begged them not to. I pleaded. but they insisted they needed to check the area. The house looked different in daylight. Small. Empty. Nothing like the nightmare that swallowed me during the night. For a moment, I wondered if the darkness had tricked my mind. If exhaustion had twisted shadows into monsters. But the closer we got, the worse the air felt. A heaviness clung to everything, as if the place was holding its breath. They searched the barn first. Nothing. No broken boards. No collapsed haystacks. No signs of anything inside. Just silence. And dust. A thick layer of dust that should have been disturbed but wasn't. Not a single footprint. Not mine. Not the things. The deputies exchanged looks. Next they checked the house. Again nothing. No disturbed furniture. No claw marks. No overturned objects. No sign something had smashed into the door or thrown itself against the walls. It was all untouched. Like the night hadn't happened. Like I hadn't happened. One of the deputies asked if I'd been drinking. Another asked if I'd been on drugs. I wanted to scream at them, shake them, drag them into the dark and show them what I saw, but all I could say was, "It was in here. I swear it was in here." They didn't believe me. They filed a missing person style incident report. Only I wasn't missing. Just lost. Or confused. Or sleep deprived, as they wrote. But I wasn't wrong. I know what I saw. I know what chased me. They eventually escorted me back to town. The farmer gave me food and water. My body shook for hours. But the worst part wasn't the silence from the police. It was the silence from the house. Like it knew it didn't need to prove anything. 2 days later, I convinced myself to return alone, during daylight, to gather my things. My bag was still inside the farmhouse where I'd left it, before everything went wrong. When I picked it up, I noticed something strange about the bedroom. My footprints were gone. But there was one thing the deputies hadn't seen because it wasn't there before. On the wall above the bed, drawn in a faint black smear, was the shape of a hand. Wrong proportions. Too long. Too thin. As if the fingers stretched halfway down the wall. And beneath it, just barely scratched into the wood, were 2 words. Still here. My breath froze. The house was silent. The air still. The sunlight warm. But something in that room felt awake. Aware. Waiting. I backed out slowly, step by careful step, trying not to make a sound. My heart thrashed so loudly I was sure it would hear it. The moment I stepped outside, the wind shifted behind me. Cold, sharp, unnatural. Like the whisper of something moving closer. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just walked. And walked. And I haven't gone back to that countryside since. But sometimes, on quiet nights, when all the lights are off and the world is too still, I swear I can hear it again. Matching my breathing. Perfectly. Like it's waiting for the right moment to come back. And the worst part? I don't think it ever stayed in that house. I think it followed me.